Please welcome onto the stage, Samantha Marquez.
Hi everyone, how's it going? I know it's a little bit early, but we're all here and we're here to have a really good time. So before I start, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that planned this event, everyone from Pangea, all the sponsors, because this is honestly one of the coolest events ever. I think we can just give a quick round of applause for that, right? Also, I'm not going to lie to you, that also let me catch my breath a little bit, because even just a little bit of stairs, I need to work out. So basically, I'm here because I want to talk a little bit about this kind of journey that I've been on, so like, why am I here? And then also kind of the collective journey that we're all going to take together from this event and what we're going to do afterwards, right? So a little bit about me first. I was born in the US, but my family's from Spain and from Venezuela. I also have roots in a bunch of other countries in the world, so pretty international family. It's really nice. Eating at my family's house is the best, I'm gonna be honest. I study neuroscience and psychology at Yale, which is really, really great. I started an initiative that's called Raising Science to the Girl Power, which is all about trying to connect young women and young girls to resources, support, role models, so that they can really find their passion and succeed in science. Because that's one of the things that I kind of struggled with when I was starting to get into science, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but giving back is so important. And then also I was super honored to be named one of the Glamour magazine's College Women of the Year this year. So if you want to see me with red hair, that's online as well. But yeah, so I just want to start off a little bit about my journey and how I got here right now today. And I'm not talking about the flight from JFK. So let's start here. So yesterday at the panel, I believe it was Andrea that mentioned that he loves quotes. I'm the same way, because sometimes I feel like other people have a way of saying the things that we feel or the things that we think in a much more elegant way. So I've included a ton of quotes in my presentation. So I start off around here. At this point in my journey, I realized that I was kind of born to be a scientist. I definitely had the look when I was a kid, but I think what made me want to explore science and what really made me a scientist at heart was the fact that I loved asking questions and that I was a super curious kid. So I was the kind of kid that wanted to go around and check out, all the bugs and all of the different critters when I was at the beach. And asking these kind of questions, my parents were the people that always answered these questions, and they didn't try to baby the answers to, kind of just satisfy the basic requirements of what a kid is asking. My parents were there to really encourage me to continue asking these questions and to continue to explore. So I had a pretty happy childhood, as you can see from that photo. So my first lesson that I really took from this part of my life was that questions are so important. Kids are born with this curiosity, and they're always asking about things around them. And that really is what leads to developing curiosity, creativity, and that yearning for finding out what happens. A little bit farther into my journey, we get to around the time where I wanted to stop talking about science and start experiencing science. And for me, the idea that experience is so important because it really helps you ingrain your passion into your life. So I went from exploring gravity by just kind of being thrown up in the air as a kid to actually having the chance to take a zero gravity flight. And I was playing with M&Ms and water in that photo. Very fun. I got to learn and experience the difference between Mars gravity, lunar gravity, and zero gravity. And actually, also on this trip, I met the Mythbusters, which was really awesome. Adam was the one that got sick on the plane. Very expected, but this was one of the moments where I realized that experiencing science and asking questions is something that you can make a wonderful career out of. And that was a really big part for me. So this lesson was living your dream. You need to experience it. When you experience the things that you're passionate about, you really include it in every part of your life. And it makes all the difference. When we go a little bit farther, this is around the time when I was in middle school. And I started thinking about science in a more kind of personal way. And this sort of came about with an idea that came from a question. So my question was, why does this have to be done in this way? Why aren't we doing this differently? And this in this situation was a bioengineering structure that I had been seeing. I'd done some research on it, and I wondered, why is it something that if it wants to evolve, isn't this being built with cells? And this is when I kind of started going to the lab. This is when I asked the question, and my mentors were there to encourage me that I don't have an answer for you, so how about you find out for yourself? And that's sort of where the pseudosome came from. So not to get into like the nitty-gritty details of what it is, but the pseudosome is this bioengineering structure. It's a unit that's like a living container because it's made of living cells. And the really cool thing about this is, one, it's super tiny. It's like 1/10 of the diameter of a piece of hair. And two, that because you have full control over what kind of cells you want to use to build it, you can use it for virtually anything. So I started off in the lab looking like I did before, and as I evolved and grew up, so did my project. So I went from kind of the basic pseudosome to getting a little more complicated, doing things with different layers and different cells, and exploring applications not just in medicine, where you could use it for tissue engineering, repairing organs in the body, but you could even use it for even getting rid of radioactive heavy metals that have been exposed to the water from events kind of like the nuclear reactor collapse that happened in Fukushima a few years ago. And the really amazing thing is that it's a structure that you can change to adapt to whatever you want. So a little bit farther into my research, I decided that I wanted to look at the brain, and I wanted to look at how neurons work with the pseudosome. So I actually built the pseudosome using cortical brain cells. And this was supposed to be a video, which is not super important, but if it were to play, you would see actually that the pseudosomes are communicating with each other. The cells are all talking to each other, and what's amazing about that is that you could potentially use it to repair connections in the brain from people that have suffered from neurodegenerative diseases or brain damage. It could be anything from like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and there's just so many amazing options. And I've been so fortunate to have the support of my collaborators and all the universities that helped me out to get all this research. And I got to this point, and I realized that, wow, this idea just came from nowhere. I wasn't expecting this to become a project that I started when I was 11, and I'm 21 now, so it's a 10-year project. Wow. Let's take 6 seconds. That's half of my life, basically, has been this science project. And the thing from this is just that inspiration can come from anywhere. You're not always going to know that the idea that you just had is something that's going to change your life, 5 years ahead of time. So keeping your mind open and really just keeping your eyes open for these moments is super important. If we go a little bit farther into my journey, this was when I started college. And after having worked with the neuroceloidosome and realizing that I had this huge passion for understanding the brain and understanding why people do the things that they do and just the neuroscience of everyday things, this was a big change for me because I had been doing bioengineering at this point all the way up until going to college. But when I joined Yale, I found that the neuroscience track and the psychology major was what was going to make me happiest, because it was my passion, and understanding these things is what has led me to continue to ask questions in these fields. So here, the lesson is really just that life is full of surprises, and sometimes your plans are going to change. You're not sure exactly. You might go into college thinking you're going to study one thing, and then you change your mind, and it's totally okay. Or you might graduate from college, start a job, be 10 years into your job and decide you want to change, and that's also totally fine, because you need to adapt to these opportunities, and the challenge is there for you to take it. So now we're here. We're at Unleash. We're having a really great time, and I'm talking, and at this point, the lesson that I want to talk about is sort of why I do these kind of events and why I talk to people about these things. And I might get a little choked up, and I'm so sorry. But it's because giving back is so important. Because the people that support you, giving back to the communities that helped you get to where you are. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. It's just because it's the morning and I need my coffee. No, but giving back to the communities that helped you get to where you are is so important. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for everything that my parents did, everything that my grandparents did, and all the mentors that were there to help me out. And crap. I was not expecting this part of the presentation. But it's every experience that you have and every person that helps you out is there because and it makes you who you are today. And it's so important to remember that, because at the end of the day, you're going to be that person for someone. And someone's going to be up on a stage talking about the things that you did to help them out. And it's honestly one of the best things that you can do is just to make sure that you are there to support the communities that helped you get to where you are. So please remember that when you guys are leaving this event, going back and talking about the things that you love and helping people get to the things that they love as well. So now we're here, and we're not sure what comes next, but at this point, it's not really my journey anymore. It's our journey. And I think that's what's so amazing about this event, and it's so amazing about the connections that we're able to make here, because we are now at a point where we can challenge each other and we can support each other in the things that we want to do and the things that we want to achieve for our communities, the dreams that we have for our communities, our countries, our families. And I hope that this event and this talk and the conversations that you guys are going to have when you leave here, that it's just the start of a wonderful and beautiful community that we can all share together, because that's where it all begins, is just by having a conversation. It begins with a question. It begins with challenging someone to really take it a step further. And so I want to leave you guys with this wonderful quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. And it says, "If you don't have a seat at the table, bring your own chair." And the idea of this is that not always are there going to be groups that are going to welcome you to give your input, to give your ideas, but you should fight to make sure that you have a seat at that table, because your opinion, your ideas and your thoughts matter, and they're gonna make a difference. Change starts with the smallest thing. And what I'm hoping is that through this conversation that we're having and through the challenges that we're gonna give each other, that we're gonna start change together in all our communities, and that we'll be able to help each other get there. So thank you guys so much. All right, the tears are gone, and now there's questions, my favorite thing. So what do you think is the key to inspire young women to enter scientific fields? I think one of the biggest things is having role models that exemplify the people that need to be inspired. So I remember when I was growing up, both my parents are scientists. My parents were both born in Venezuela, but my dad's family's here from Spain. And seeing immigrants come to the US and succeed in the way that they succeeded in science was hugely inspirational. But there was also women in science that I identified with, and really their struggle and their journey was something that I could see in my own struggle and my own journey. So I think identifying role models and making sure that when we're talking about science, when we're talking about STEM, we're talking about women too, because there's so many women that have made amazing contributions to science, and we don't always mention them in the textbooks. We don't always mention them when we're talking about, these amazing discoveries. So having that in mind, I think, is one of the really key things. Do you think that women's repression in science is coming to an end? I hope so. God, I hope so. I think that this generation is doing so much to make sure that women and equality, and even gender equality, separate from just men and women, all genders, that is such an important problem that we are highlighting in this generation. And I think that as the years go on, there's going to be more and more recognition of the work that women have done in science and the work that women do in science. So I'm hoping that it's coming to an end. I don't see it as something that has like a start and an end, but really it's a progress. It's a work in progress always. What do you think the future holds for degeneration, brain diseases in this new generation, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, schizophrenia? That is an excellent question. There's a lot of research being done because there's not a lot of information about sort of how these diseases develop and why they develop and ways to stop the development. So I think the future is a lot going to be in things that have to do with prevention, but also finding ways to treat it so that diseases are not getting to more extreme, symptoms and points like that. Who is your biggest inspiration? That is a great question and a very difficult one to answer. I think if we're talking about science, two women who have been huge inspirations to me have been Marie Curie, who is actually, my parents say that I wasn't, my middle name is not because of her, but I like to think it is. And then the other woman is Rosalind Franklin, who hopefully you guys know is the woman that was the one that took the photograph of the DNA structure and then didn't get any recognition for it. So I feel like the struggle of those two women to really be heard in such a male-dominated era of science, and the fact that it's something that we're talking about now is a huge inspiration to me, and it's one of the reasons why I love to talk about these problems. What project would you like to start with next? That is a great question. So I am a senior now at Yale. I'm about to finish in May, and one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm actually working at a lab in Hartford, and I'm going to be looking at the neuroscience, basically, of different decision-making aspects of college-age students using alcohol. So impulsivity and that kind of thing, and I want to understand how it affects the brain and how it affects men versus women differently. So that's sort of what I'm working on the neuroscience side right now, and it's super fun and great, exciting things. Let's see, what's the thing you are most proud of? I think there's one of the speakers you're going to hear from later, Alexandru, he and I competed in the same science fair. And I did science fairs basically the end of middle school and all of high school, and it was such a big part of my life. But around that time was also when I started to reach out to communities and reach out to people that really were the people that I connected with and the people that represented me. So I remember I gave a talk for the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and it was a group of high school students. Totally not what I was expecting when I went in there. I thought it was going to be like a small room, and it was like 300 high school kids, all Hispanic from all around the world, or all around the US. And I remember after I gave my talk, there was one kid who came to talk to me afterwards, and he said, "Listen, I didn't think that I could do this, that I could do what you do. But seeing that you were able to make it and to make science your passion, even though you didn't see people that looked like you or that represented your culture, means so much to me." And what made a difference, I think, in that moment, and one of the reasons that I'm so proud of being able to talk to people in that way is a few years later, I actually saw him competing and winning at that same science fair that I had attended, and to see that evolution from the doubt of, I don't know if I can do this because people that look like me aren't being shown doing the things that I want to do. Well, what was important was that now he is the one that other kids are going to look at and say, he looks like me. I can do what he did. So that is one of the things that I'm most proud of. Thank you guys so much.